Without Tulsi. Good. You do. Okay, if you could all get out the songbook and turn to page 59 in the songbook. Songbook. Page 59, second sloka from the top. Vahasiva pushi visadeva sanam jaladabam. Vahasiva pushi visadeva sanam jaladabam. Halahati biti militaya munabam. Halahati biti militaya munabam. Ahati vapushi vishade sanam jaladam. Pushi vishadeva sanam jaladabam. Halati biti militaya munabam. Halati biti militaya munabam. Pushi vishadeva sanam jaladabam. Siva pushi vishadeva sanam jaladabam. Halahati biti militaya munabam. Halahati biti militaya munabam. Keshavajita haladarupa. Keshavajita haladarupa. Keshavajita haladarupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of Balaram, the wielder of the plow, all glories to you. On your brilliant white body you wear garments like the color of a fresh blue rain cloud. These garments are colored like the beautiful dark hue of the river Yamuna, who feels great fear due to the striking of your plowshare. Jai Om Vishnu Padma Hamsa Parivrajakacharya Asya Satashishimana's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai, Mathura Dhama Ki Jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dhama Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki Jai, Gangamai Jamuna Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Balaram Ki Jai, Lord Balaram Ki Jai, Lord Balaram Ki Jai. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvase Susunyavadi Paskachade Satarane Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam So today is the appearance day of Lord Balaram, and it is August 19, 2024, Hillsborough, North Carolina, New Goloka. And we're going to be looking at who is Balaram, his Raja pastimes, his Mathura pastimes, and his Dwarka pastimes. And one difficulty with doing this is that because Balaram is involved with so many of Krishna's pastimes, that it's impossible to name all of the smaller ones. Just if there's something missing here that's like one of your favorites, let me know. I'll try to include that for the next time. So who is Balaram? So Lord Krishna is the fountainhead of all incarnations. Right? Balaram is his second body, his first expansion. So himself in innumerable forms. And here we see the, something I'm trying for the first time. There we go. So there you can see Lord Balaram among Krishna's various incarnations. And really the two are the same identity. They only differ in form. And Lord Balaram is the first bodily expansion of Krishna and exists in his pastimes. Just like if you could have a friend who was an expansion of yourself. Right? So Krishna's best friend is his own expansion. And Balaram is a Swamsa expansion. What is the noise coming from it's kind of like a clean noise. Can you get Ishwar Chaitanya from the kitchen, please? Find out what that is. Some kind of a tinny. Yeah. Let's change out the mic. Is there another mic there we can use? Is this better? Ah! This one's better? Okay, somebody was with the mic. So Lord Balaram is the chief deity among the quadruple expansion, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And a very nice quote in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi 5, 119 purport. Prabhupada says, the Lord of Swetadweep expands himself as Seshanaga, who sustains all the planets upon his innumerable hoods. These huge global spheres are compared to grains of mustard resting on the spiritual hoods of Seshanaga. The scientist's law of gravity is a partial explanation of Lord Sankarshan's energy. The name Sankarshan, which means to attract, has a relationship to this idea of gravity. So Sankarshan is the original form of the Purusha, the creator of the world, from whom this world is created and destroyed. And that Sankarshan is an expansion of Lord Balaram and Lord Nityananda. And Balaram is also considered the original guru. Prabhupada says in a lecture in Mayapur in 1975, he said, Balaram is presenting Krishna, and therefore he is the original guru. Any bona fide guru must be a representative of Balaram or Nityananda. And of course, we're all supposed to be gurus. Srila Prabhupada says, I want all of you to be gurus. And what is this mood of Lord Balaram? His mood is that of a servant. So in Adi 5:123, it says that Lord Balaram is Krishna's umbrella. Let me see, here his umbrella. Here's his umbrella. And he's also his throne, and he's his slippers, and he's his bed, and he's Krishna's pillow. And of course, as Anantasesha, he's there directly as the Lord's bed. It's actually really astonishing to me how Lord Balaram is the unlimited snake. Yeah. All right, so what was his appearance in this world, which we're celebrating today? So first he appears in the womb of Devaki. As the original guru, he prepares the way for the Lord to come. He introduces the Lord. He arranges everything from the Lord, and then he's transferred to the womb of Rohini. This is explained in Bhagavatam 10.2.15. And this is why he's called Sankarshan. He's attracted to Rohini's womb. So he's really the child of both Devaki and Rohini. And of course, when this happened in Mathura, people thought that Devaki had had a miscarriage. So they did take that as one of her children. Okay, we're going to look at some of his Vrindavan pastimes. So after Krishna and Balaram appeared, Nanda Maharaj asked Gargamuni to perform the name-giving ceremony. And Gargamuni said, I'm the priest of the Yadus, and if I perform this ceremony, everyone's going to think that your children are both in the Yadu dynasty. And everyone knows that Balaram is Vasudev's son, but, we don't want anybody knowing about Krishna, or we might have trouble with the demons. So Nanda Maharaj said, okay, well, let's still do it, but let's do it privately in the cowshed. So in 10.8.12, Gargamuni is saying, he said, this child, the son of Rohini, will give all happiness to his relatives and friends by his transcendental qualities. Therefore, he will be known as Rama. So Rama means pleasure. And because he will exhibit extraordinary bodily strength, he will also be known as Bala. Moreover, because he unites two families, Vasudev's and Nanda Maharaj's, he will be known as Sankarshan. And Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan gave great happiness to their foster parents, Nanda Maharaj. Nanda Maharaj, here we see, he knows that Balaram is Vasudev's son. Actually, Vasudeva and Nanda Maharaj are half-brothers. They have the same father. And Nanda Maharaj was full of love for Balaram, raising him as if he were his own son. And then, of course, Krishna and Balaram also gave great happiness to their mothers, Yasoda and Rohini, and all of their, as Prabhupada would call them, the elderly gopis. Of course, when we hear the word elderly, we think of someone my age, so it wasn't like that elderly. We're people like in their 20s and 30s. And Mother Rohini would go to call the boys from playing and say, you have to come home and eat something, and they wouldn't come. And then Mother Yasoda would call them and say, if you don't come, your father won't eat. Right? In 10.11.17, Prabhupada writes how Nanda Maharaj regularly took his food with his two sons, Krishna and Balaram. And Mother Yasoda said, your father won't eat unless you're there to eat with him. Of course, yesterday, Harivamsa Prabhu was talking about how when Krishna eats with his friends in the morning without his father and uncles and so forth, he's much more joking. But when he eats with his father, he's more grave. And the boys would play in Vrindavan. Sometimes they would catch the tail of a calf, and they would be dragged through the mud and cow dung, and the ladies would laugh. So I find it astonishing that the Lord of everything likes to play as a child. Right? We think of a child as being they're sort of personify ignorance and helplessness. And God is the most powerful and the most all-knowing. But it's also fun to be a child, isn't it? Yes? So this is the Lord's greatness, that he's maintaining everything through his expansions, and he's just playing like he's just some ignorant, helpless child that's being dragged around by a calf. Now, one day, the boys, including Lord Balaram, went to Mother Yasoda and said, Krishna has eaten dirt. And then Mother Yasoda says to Krishna, all your friends, even your brother, is complaining about you. She said, why are you so restless that you're eating dirt in a solitary place? And what did Krishna say? He said, my dear brother, all these boys, including Lord Balaram, are speaking lies. They're all lying. You just look in my mouth. And of course, when she looks in his mouth, she finds out that there's not just a little bit of earth, but there's the whole earth. And there's the whole universe. It's there. Our Balaram also shows this later to the sages at Naimisharanya. So Krishna and Balaram were always getting into trouble, just like ordinary children take delight in causing mischief. Yes, any of you who are parents, you know that little children love to cause mischief. They like to do things only and solely because they're naughty. And so Krishna and Balaram were also like this. This was their pleasure. And again, I find this astonishing because Dharman tu Sakshat Bhagavad Pranitam, Dharma actually is a manifestation from the Lord. But yet he likes to act as if he's breaking the rules as a young child. And of course, because they were very young, nobody took this that seriously. And just like ordinary parents, they actually get some pleasure when they see the child engage in mischievous activities. And so, the gopis are complaining about Krishna and Balaram coming and stealing their butter and yogurt and then giving it to the monkeys. And Mother Yasoda says, why don't you put your butter and yogurt up high so they can't reach it? And they said, well, that doesn't work. They just climb on something. And if they can't reach it by climbing, they take a rock and they break a hole in the clay pot so that all the yogurt or butter comes out and then they can catch it. And they eat as much as they can and then they give it to the monkeys. You can see the monkeys there. Right, and of course when the monkeys are full and they won't take any more, then Krishna and Balaram says, this is no good. Even the monkeys won't eat it. So when they get a little older, they start taking the calves into the forest. This is also very interesting from a sociological perspective, how in those days, children under the age of 6 were already doing practical work. And it was also fascinating to me how you're going to have like 4 or 5-year-old children going into a forest with calves without any adults. So please don't try this in 2024, you'll get arrested. But that was what was happening. And there was a river there and monsters and so forth. So when the boys would leave in the morning, so this was very heartbreaking for the parents, especially like Mother Yasoda. These going to the forest for the whole day. This was this meeting and separation. And there in the forest, the boys would not just take care of the calves, and later on when they got older of the cows, but they would also play and rest, and sometimes Lord Balaram would be resting on the root of a tree or the lap of a friend, and Krishna, as his younger brother, is massaging his feet. So again, we think of this, they're really the same person. How Krishna is expanding in innumerable forms. Ramadi Murti Shukalani Amena Tishtan Nanavatar Makarod Bhuvaneshu Kintu. Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Parama Bhumanyo. So Krishna has all these expansions of himself, and he's relating with himself. Of course, Balaram and Krishna display somewhat different aspects to their personality, as we will see. And as they're herding the calves, or later the cows, they take them to the Yamuna, they're simply enjoying. They're simply enjoying. So this idea of God as simply enjoying in some, ultimate pleasure. The activities are pleasurable. The atmosphere is pleasurable. Most religions, their idea of God is at best like Paramatma. Just the creator, the father, the witness, the judge, and that all he's doing is just sitting around judging everybody. Does that sound like fun? And then you go to be with him in his abode, and you just sing Gloria, Gloria, and play on harps or trumpets or something while he just sits there judging everyone. But why would the Supreme Lord do this? He is actually the supreme enjoyer, and as the supreme enjoyer, just like if we want to enjoy, we like to go to some beautiful place. Most vacation spots, they're beautiful places with water or sometimes snow, isn't it? So this is the Supreme Lord is always in such a place. And when it's the rainy season, so then he shelters in the caves of, you can see him sheltering there, Krishna and Balaram, in the caves of Govardhan. And the cowherd boys are always dancing and singing. And Krishna and Balaram are encouraging them, saying, yes, 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 you sing very nicely, you dance very nicely. And then the boys are also encouraging Krishna and Balaram like that. So this is the relationship of equality. And Prabhupada often talks about how people respect God as the Father, but we think we can become Krishna's father, like Nanda Maharaj or Krishna's mother, and we can also become friends with Krishna and Balaram. And of all the friends, Balaram is considered the chief friend. He's like the leader of the friends, and they're seeing themselves as equal. Krishna is saying, you dance very nicely. They're saying, now you dance, Krishna and Balaram, and you dance very nicely. And Balaram like Krishna likes to blow his buffalo horn and call all of his friends and call the cows. And then they often have picnics in the forest. So this is also fun, right? We do this. Of course, when we have picnics, it's not usually entirely fun. We have to deal with mosquitoes and ants and all kinds of things, and then we get sand and dirt in all the clothes, and there's always some difficulty. But with Krishna and Balaram, so that they and their friends have their food packed from home, and they go to the forest, and the boys get out sometimes pieces of bark or leaves or flowers, or they use stumps of trees or various things they're using as their plates, and they're putting out all this food from home. And sometimes this was described in chapter 13. And some of the friends say, oh, Krishna, why don't you try some of my food from home? And Krishna says, why don't you try some of my food? Prabhupada sometimes talks about how Mother Yasoda, being very wealthy, that she would give Krishna and Balaram like samosas and pakoras, and some of the other boys would have just chapatis and rice. And so Krishna would take their chapatis and rice, Krishna and Balaram would take their chapatis and rice and give them their fancy food. So we see here that these devotees, these Ragatmika devotees, they're not following the rules of offering food. You understand? Like we have very strict rules for how to offer food. So it has to be very pure ingredients, and the kitchen has to be very clean, and we don't eat it. We hopefully don't even think about eating it. Right? When Madhavendra Puri just thought about tasting the sweet rice, he considered he had committed an offense, although he wanted to taste that to make it himself. But we don't even think about eating. We don't smell the food. And then we put it on a special plate. This plate is just for Krishna. No one else eat. Where the cooking is all done in pots and bowls we don't eat of, and with spoons we don't eat off of. And then we offer on special plates, and then we say special mantras and so forth, right? We have all these rituals that we do for offering food. But the cowherd boys are not doing any of that. They're just saying, hey, Krishna, my mother gave me a samosa. Would you like to taste it? Right? And Krishna or Balaram say, sure. And then, hey, Balaram, here's, and they just throw Lord Balaram the samosa. And sometimes what they even do is they'll take the vegetables out of the samosa and stuff the samosa with jasmine flowers. And they'll say, hey, Balaram, there's a monkey over there, right? And Balaram looks, and then they just put this samosa with jasmine flowers on his plate. So, and they may even take a bite at, oh, this is delicious. Hey, Balaram, would you like to taste this? So this should not be imitated by us. But this is the mood of Krishna's intimate friends. So as we know, one time when the friends were eating without Balaram there, because, why wasn't Balaram there? Because it was, so that must have been today. Yeah. So one time on Balaram Purnima, when Balaram wasn't there, and the boys and calves were with just Krishna, Lord Brahma stole them away. And then Krishna expanded as the boys and calves. So a few days before Balaram's birthday, the next year, Balaram and Krishna were out and they're with their friends who were actually expansions of Krishna. And the cowherd men had the grown-up cows on top of Govardhan Hill. So how many of you have actually been to Govardhan Hill? How many of you have been to Govardhan Hill? Would you want to run down Govardhan Hill? Be pretty difficult. I think even if you were an Olympic champion, you would find it full of these large boulders. And then cows are not goats, you know. Right, goats could do that, but cows can't. And the cows see their calves at the foot of Govardhan Hill, who are all expansions of Krishna. And usually with animals, once their children grow up and they have new babies, they are not so attached to the older babies. With most animals, not all, like elephants aren't like that, but most animals are like that. So with these cows, they had new calves. These were older calves. Of course, they were actually Krishna. But when the cows saw these calves that were actually Krishna, they started racing down Govardhan Hill with joined front and rear legs. How they did this without falling and breaking their legs, I don't know. But they were just like racing. Now, what's very significant to me here is this eagerness to see Krishna. We often talk about how the price of Krishna consciousness is this eagerness that you basically don't see obstacles. You know, if you're not really eager for something, all you see are the obstacles. If you've ever presented a really good idea to someone who wasn't into it as much as you were, and then all they said was the problems. Everyone's had this experience? Oh, there's going to be this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem. When you're really attached to something, you don't even perceive the problems. So the cows didn't even perceive all these stones and boulders that are just racing down the hill. And then the cowherd men said they were frustrated and angry, which is not their normal state of being. You know, these are eternal associates of the Lord, and they're used to always being successful. They're not used to failure. It's not something they're normally experiencing. And here they just couldn't restrain these cows. The cows just completely got away from them. And so they were feeling really confused and frustrated and angry. And so they gradually make their way down Govardhan Hill, not as fast as the cows. And when they come down there and they see their children, who are actually Krishna, they forget about all of their frustration and anger. And they're just embracing their boys and smelling their heads. And when Balaram saw this attachment, he was unable to understand the reason for it. And he thought, what is this phenomenon? The affection of all the inhabitants of Raja, including me, toward these boys and calves is increasing like never before, just like our attachment for Krishna, the supersoul of all living beings. Who is this mystic power and where has she come from? Is she a demigod? Is she a demoness? No, she must be the illusory energy of my master, Lord Krishna, for who else could bewilder me? So it's, I think, very interesting that although Krishna and Balaram are the same person, Krishna, not wanting Balaram to feel separation from his friends, he was able to bewilder his own self. So the Lord is there in two separate beings, one as Krishna, who knows that he's expanded as the boys and the calves, and one is Balaram, who doesn't know what he himself has done. And this way he's enjoying being with his calves and boys as Balaram and enjoying these being expansions of himself as Krishna. So on the day that the pastimes of Talavan occurred, Krishna is glorifying Balaram extensively, and one of the glorifications he has of him is about the bees. So we know there are 5 primary relationships we can have with the Lord, and one of them is Shantaras. So the Shantaras is very interesting. Shantaras can be a preliminary step, and often that involves feelings of love for Paramatma. But just like awe and reverential love. Great love, but awe and reverential. And in that type of Shantaras, Srila Rupa Goswami says there's not a trace of mamata. There's not a trace of even this is my God. And in one sense, there's some service. The person may speak about the Lord, but it's really a neutral position. Then there's also an understanding of Shantaras which has some mixture of dasya in it, and which exists, it's very prevalent in Vaikuntha, but also exists in Goloka Vrindavan, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Srila Prabhupada describe like the cows and the bees as being in this Shantaras. So here Krishna tells Balaram these bees must be great devotees because they're always following you and chanting your glories. Actually, in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, it says, the sweetly singing birds will sometimes stop singing to listen to the glorification of the bees. You know, from a material perspective, the sound of bees is not so pleasant, and the sound of beautiful birds is very pleasant. But spiritually, they're all equally wonderful, and there's no envy. So they're hearing this bzz, bzz, Balaram's wonderful bzz. And Krishna says, although you have disguised yourself in this forest, O Balaram, they never give you up. They always follow you. And our acharyas say that these bees are present even in Balaram's intimate pastimes with the gopis. They are witness to all of his activities. So at this day also was when the cowherd boys told Krishna and Balaram that they were hungry and they could smell the sweet fruits in the Talavan forest, but they couldn't get to them because they were being guarded by these demons who had ass-like forms. So Krishna and Balaram went to the Talavan forest, and Balaram shook the trees like a maddened elephant. Those of you who were here the other day when I was talking about maddened elephants. So Balaramji is shaking the trees like a maddened elephant. And then Dhanuka, who represents, according to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who represents Tamagun. My forest. Who is shaking the trees in my forest? And he comes and he kicks Balaram in the chest, and Balaram's completely unaffected. Actually, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that all of the anartas are removed by Krishna. Right? Vidyantasta abhadroni vijinoti shritsadat. But these anartas of attachment to Tamagun and Rajagun, they're eliminated by Balaram, the Supreme Guru. That it's only by following Guru in spiritual strength. And Prabhupada says spiritual strength means shraddha or faith, and sadhana or some practice. If we say, I believe in Guru, I love Guru, but we don't follow the instructions of Guru and we don't perform our sadhana, we will not have any spiritual strength. And if we perform our sadhana without faith, niyamagraha, as some kind of empty ritual, we will also not get any spiritual strength. So we want to have both faith in the instructions of Guru, and then we want to exemplify that faith in our actions. Yes, I'm going to chant my 16 rounds every day with attention and love, and my Gayatri mantras, and I'm going to worship the Lord, and I'm going to offer my food, and I'm going to read the Shastras with faith. And when that happens, this tamagun nature of ours, this is mine, don't touch, it belongs to me, I can do with it as I like, will be vanquished. And so Balaram, when he's kicked by Dhanuka, he just takes his hind legs and he whirls the demon around and throws him in one of the trees. And then, of course, Dhanuka's friends come, and Krishna and Balaram are having a lot of fun whirling the demons around. And this is also interesting because the Lord can kill demons just by thinking, oh, let them be killed, or just by working. We were talking the other day about Durga Devi, Shristi Stiti Pralaya. She's also in charge of destruction. Just through working through his agents, he can kill demons. But it's so much fun for him to actually come and personally kill demons. You know, it just is fun. Oh, look, he can kick me and I can whirl him around. Another day, Pralamba, who represents, according to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Rajagun, he disguised himself as a cowherd boy. And he was playing games with Krishna and Balaram, and only Krishna recognized him. Even Balaram didn't recognize him. And I think we can take some solace in this. Yes, I know this is Yoga Maya, but there's some solace in this, that sometimes we may not recognize demons who appear to be devotees. We find even in the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that when people would present improper philosophy, sometimes the devotees would become bewildered by it, and it was only Swarup Damodar who would say, hey, this is wrong. This is actually offensive. So sometimes we may become bewildered. We might want to think, well, I'm going to get to a point in my spiritual life where I'm never going to be bewildered, but I don't know. It happens. So there's this play fighting between the cowherd boys, right? And whoever loses carries the winners on their shoulder. And so Krishna's team lost. Yes, and Pralamba was on Krishna's team, and he was sussing things out and saying, Krishna's the most powerful, I better keep away from him. Let me kill them one at a time, I'll first kill Balaram, and let me take him away from Krishna. So he takes Balaram on his shoulders, and he's going, but Balaram, of course, is holding up the universes, so he's as heavy as a mountain. And Pralamba's, he's feeling the weight. He doesn't have enough mystic Shakti to both carry Balaram and continue to look like a cowherd boy. So he just can't use that disguise energy anymore, and his real form manifests, and Balaram says, this carrier's changed in every way. So sometimes that happens. We think someone's a devotee or a nice person, and then they're under some stress and they reveal their real nature, and we go, well, look at that. And so Balaram, we see Pralamba takes him across the Yamuna to Bandirban, and I don't know if you can you see the cowherd boys in the background? There? Right? So they see when Balaram kills Pralamba, they're all going, well done, well done, well done. And then they end up there in Bandirvan, and then we have another story that flows from there with the cows walking away. So we have the time that Krishna went into the Kaliya lake and got captured by Kaliya and was wrapped in the coils of Kaliya, and the residents of Vrindavan saw many ill omens, and they were rushing toward the lake. Sri Balaram told his mother not to go, and that's a long, involved story, which I don't know if we'll have time to tell that. But she's also the mother of the serpents, right, as the wife of Kasyapa. Anyway, he told her, you stay back and cook, because after this pastime's finished, everyone's going to be hungry, because he knew that she would not want to see Krishna chastising Kaliya. And Balaram was thinking, Krishna doesn't play with me like this in my Ananta Sesha form. And then he's playing with this ordinary snake. And he's keeping can you see he's keeping here, Balaram? He's keeping right here. He's keeping the residents from going in the water. He was like the only one who had I can zoom in on this. He was the only one who had like a cool head. And he was saying, don't worry, Krishna's going to be okay, right? Krishna's going to be okay. He was even laughing. But after a while, he could see things were getting really out of hand. So Srila Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Bhagavatamrita says that Balaram said to Krishna, oh, Krishna, these people are not your associates in Vaikuntha. They are not your monkey associates. They are not the Yadavas. They are the people of Raja. You are their only life and soul. They are dying. I have no power to save them. They are now lifeless. Merciful Krishna, only friend of the people of Raja, please give up this pastime, or your gentle heart will become filled with grief when they all die. And then Krishna comes out of the coils and starts dancing. So one time, in what's called Holika Purnima, Prabhupada says it's also known as Gaura Purnima. So one time, Krishna and Balaram together were dancing and singing with their gopis in Vrindavan when this demon Sankachuta came. And he grabbed the women and he started driving them off toward the north. At this time, Krishna followed Sankachuta. It said he captured him from a long distance as if he was nearby, and Balaram stayed back to guard the women. And the Sankachuta had a jewel shaped like a conch shell. And after Krishna killed Sankachuta, he took this jewel and he gave it to Balaram. And our acharyas say that the reason he did this was that various gopis were thinking, oh, Krishna's going to give that jewel to me. Krishna's going to give that jewel to me. So he gave it to his brother Balaram rather than causing any kind of conflict with the gopis. So Krishna and Balaram, as we know, are taken by Akrura to Mathura, and they're living away from the residents of Vrindavan for a long time. But Balaram decided he was going to visit Vrindavan. Krishna doesn't visit Vrindavan, but Balaramji does visit Vrindavan. And when he visits Vrindavan, he has his own dance with his own gopis. So in the Gauragana Deshadipika, verse 155, Kavi Karnapur says that Balaram's chief gopi is Purnananda. So here we see Sri Balaramji with his chief gopi, Purnananda. And Balaram is dancing with his gopis. Again, these are not Krishna's gopis. They're younger. And when Krishna and Balaram left Vrindavan, they were younger. And here he's coming and dancing and enjoying Ras Leela. And as they're enjoying Ras Leela, he decides that he'd like for all of them to go swim in the Yamuna. But rather than going to the Yamuna, he wants the Yamuna to come to him. So he calls her to come, and she doesn't come. She thinks, oh, Balaram's been drinking Varuni, and he doesn't know what he's doing. I don't have to listen to him because he's intoxicated. So Balaram wasn't very happy with this attitude of the Yamuna, and he takes his plow and he starts pulling at her. And this is why Prabhupada says the Yamuna is still in many different streams. And then she comes and apologizes. She said, I'm very sorry. So we may not always be perfect in following the instructions of Guru and Krishna, but then we need to apologize. We need to put aside our ego and rectify ourselves. So going on to Mathura, on the way to Mathura, Krishna and Balaram were being driven in the chariot by Akrura. And Akrura goes to take his bath and chant the Gayatri mantras. So one is supposed to chant Gayatri mantras, ideally half submerged in a sacred river. So that's a little difficult for us here in North Carolina. I don't think we're all going to be running to the creek every time we chant Gayatri mantras. But the idea is it should be meditation. Just like we say in the Guru Vastika, that we meditate on the Guru. We have this word, dhana, we meditate on the Guru 3 times a day, and we have these Guru mantras we chant. So this is a meditation. So Akrura leaves Krishna and Balaram in the chariot because they hadn't been initiated yet, so they weren't yet chanting these mantras, and he goes in the Yamuna, and there when he's in the Yamuna, he sees that Krishna has become Lord Vishnu and Balaram has become Anantasesh. It says, this is from 39, 42 and 44 to 45. It says, Akrura suddenly saw Balaram and Krishna, but he saw Anantasesha. He saw Balaram as Anantasesha, the lord of the serpents, receiving praise from the Siddhas, Charanas, Gandharvas, and demons, who all had their heads bowed before him. The personality of Godhead whom Akrura saw had thousands of head, thousands of hoods, thousands of helmets. His blue garment and his fair complexion, as white as the filaments of a lotus stem, made him appear like white Kailash mountain with its many peaks. Can someone get Ishwar Chaitanya to ask him to make sure that the camera doesn't switch? Can somebody get Ishwar? Oh, there he is. He's right here. You taking care of it? Okay, good. I didn't see you. So here we have now the killing of Kamsa. So right before the killing of Kamsa, there was the killing of the elephant Kuvalayapita, who Kamsa had hoped would kill Krishna and Balaram before the wrestling match. And of course, Krishna killed Kuvalayapita. And then Balaram and Krishna each took a tusk from the elephant as a weapon. And they had these tusks when they entered the wrestling arena. Yes. And of course, they were first killing the wrestlers. Krishna killed Chanura, and Balaram killed Mustika. After Krishna killed Kamsa, Balaram killed the other relatives because they were related to Krishna, but they weren't related to Balaram. And so generally you don't kill your own senior relatives. But because Kamsa could only be killed by Krishna, so Krishna killed Kamsa, but Balaram killed the rest. So now they're in Mathura and they've rescued their parents, and their parents say, oh, it's time for your education. Time for you to go to school. So in Vrindavan, they'd had a very informal education, learning how to take care of the calves and the cows and so many things. But now they're getting formal studies, and this is described in chapter 44. And text 33 says, the best of the Brahmanas, the spiritual masters, Sandipani, was satisfied with their submissive behavior, and thus he taught them the entire Vedas, together with the 6 corollaries and the Upanishad. So this is the Tadviti Praniprasnena Pariprasnena Sevya Upadekshanti Te Ganyam Ganinas Tattvadarshinaha. That one should go to a guru who has seen the truth, and one should satisfy that guru by service. And Krishna and Balaram show this example, that they satisfy Sandipani Muni by their service and submissive attitude, and therefore he reveals everything to them. When they finish their education, and system is then you give some dakshin to the guru. And Sandipani Muni asked for them to return his dead son, which they did. And then, of course, they went back to their parents. And Devaki, this is from 1085, 30 and 32 to 33. She says to her divine sons, Krishna and Balaram, taking birth from me, you have now descended to this world in order to kill those kings whose good qualities have been destroyed by the present age, and who thus defy the authority of the scriptures and burden the earth. It is said that when your spiritual master ordered you to retrieve his long-dead son, you brought him back from the forefathers' abode as a token of remuneration for your guru's mercy. Please fulfill my desire in the same way. O supreme masters of all yogic masters, please bring back my sons who were killed by the king of Boja so that I can see them once again. So this is actually a very common way that we pray to the Lord. You've given this benediction to this devotee. Can you give me a similar benediction? That's like we sing in the Damodarastika. You've given prema bhakti, O Lord, to Nalakuvera and Manigri. Can you give me prema bhakti like that? This is the prayer of the. Oh, you did this for this devotee. Can I have that? Can I have something like that? At Harivarsha yesterday was talking a little bit about this, how he called it the harbinger, which I thought was such a lovely word. That the harbinger of the indication of our relationship with Krishna is when we hear about how Krishna's dealing with some devotee and we think, I want to deal with Krishna something like that. I want something like that. So of course these long story which we don't have time to tell, of these 6 sons, how they had been formerly demigods and then they became demons and then they became Devaki's children, and by drinking their breast milk that Krishna had drunk, they became liberated. All right, we're going to look at Dwarka pastimes. So Balaram is reigning as royalty in Dwarka, in the midst of the sea with his brother Krishna. And there he marries Revati, Kudumbi, the great king, also called Raivata king. He had been looking for a suitable match for his daughter, called Raivati or Revati. And he couldn't find anybody on the earth. Who's going to be qualified? So he went to see Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma said, while you've been here listening to music, so many ages have passed that everyone you considered has now died. But Balaram is still living. So Revati marries Balaram. Now, soon after that, there was I think this was the 18th fight with Jarasandhar. And we've been reading about this, of course, in our Bhagavatam classes. And how when at this particular battle, Krishna and Balaram ran away. They became ranchor. They ran away. They ran up to the top of a mountain. And Jarasandhar knew they were there, and so he set fires around the mountain so they couldn't come down without getting burned. But instead of coming down through the mountain, they jumped off the mountain. And after jumping off the mountain, and then Krishna was able to attend to the letter from Rukmini, which is what we're reading about. And he went to kidnap Rukmini. But of course, Rukmini, by Rukmi's arrangement, was supposed to be married to Shishupal. And so after Krishna kidnaps Rukmini, Rukmi comes after them. And he takes this vow that unless I can bring back my sister, I'm not going to go back to my city. Right? So eventually, of course, he's defeated by Krishna. And there's a chance that Krishna is going to kill him. Right? But then he decides, no, I'm not going to kill him. He's my brother-in-law, but I'll humiliate him. I'll give him a funny haircut. And so Balaram gets involved at this point, and he says to Krishna, you shouldn't kill a relative even if his wrongdoing warrants capital punishment. Now, of course, Krishna had just recently killed Kamsa, who was a relative. But he's saying in this case, even if someone deserves capital punishment, if they're your relative, you shouldn't kill them. Just throw them out of the family. His own sin has already killed him. But then when Balaram's talking to Rukmini, who's really upset just about this degradation and this insulting of her brother, Balaram says exactly the opposite. He says, actually, Kshatriyas sometimes have to kill even their own brother if he does evil. And he says, your attitude is unfair, for like an ignorant person, you wish good to those who are inimical to all living beings and who have done evil to your true well-wishers. And then Balaram talks to Rukmini about how we're not the body, And he says, with transcendental knowledge, dispel this grief that is weakening and confounding your mind. Please resume your natural mood, O princess of the pristine smile. So here we see that Balaram's an expert diplomat. He's saying to Krishna, don't kill your relative. You can just throw him out of the family. And he's saying to Rukmini, even Kshatriyas have to kill their relatives. And if someone's an evildoer, you shouldn't be kind to them. Come to the transcendental platform. Later on, Balaram goes to arrange the marriage of his sister, Subhadra, to Duryodhana. And Arjuna hears about this when he's traveling for a year, which, again, we don't have time to tell the background story. So he decides that he's going to kidnap Subhadra. So he dresses himself as a sannyasi, and he comes to, we're not going to have time. No way. And he comes to Dwarka, and there Balaram invites Arjuna, disguised as a sannyasi, to his home for a meal. And Arjuna falls in love with Subhadra, and Subhadra falls in love with Arjuna. And so Arjuna kidnaps her, which makes Balaram very angry. And he starts marshaling some small army to go and capture Arjuna and kill him. And then Krishna convinces Balaram, no, it's okay. Actually, Subhadra loves him, and this was all arranged with me. So I also see this as fascinating, how the Lord is there in these two forms of Krishna and Balaram with different opinions about something, and they're negotiating with each other. So one time, the great ape Dvidvida started causing trouble in the area around Dwarka. So Srila Jiva Goswami explains that this Dvidvida was an associate of Lord Ramachandra, and he became corrupted by association with Naraka, who's Krishna's son, Bhaumasura. And this bad association, this is very important, this bad association was a reaction for an offense that he'd committed when he was very proud of his strength and he disrespected Lakshman. When we disrespect the Lord, we may end up falling down into bad association. Now, Lord Ramachandra has two main associates, Mindra and Dvidvida, who are his attendant deities. So these Mindra and Dvidvida in this world were their expansions. And Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that this degradation of Dvidvida is like the fall down of Jai Vijay. It's not really a fall down, but it's as an instruction for us. So this Dvidvida was killing, burning, raping, causing great havoc. And then one time he heard these sweet sounds coming from the Raivata hill, and he sees Balaram there singing with young, beautiful women. So then Dvidvida starts showing his bare backside to the women, and he starts pulling at their clothes and insulting Balaram and taking his Varuni beverage. So they end up in a big fight, and Dvidvida is taking trees and rocks, which Balaram's destroying with his club. Finally, there's no more trees and rocks, and Dvidvida starts pounding Balaram with his fists, so Balaram puts down his weapons, hits Dvidvida on the collarbone, and kills him. One time at the Svayamvar of Duryodhana's daughter, Lakshmana, she was just giving a class on this the other day, so Samba, Krishna's oldest child by Jambavati, came and kidnapped her. The Kurus were very angry, and they had 6 of them attack Samba and arrest him. Balaram went there to negotiate, but they wouldn't negotiate. In fact, they started insulting Krishna. At this point, he took his plow and started dragging Hastinapur toward the Ganga, creating an earthquake, and they relented. When Krishna and Balaram were going after Sadadanva, who had killed Satrajit, they went a very long distance, and they ended up in Mithila. So there Balaram said, I want to visit my friend here in Mithila. And he stayed there for several years, and it was there that he taught Duryodhana how to fight with a club. So the residents of Dwarka and Vrindavan meet during this solar eclipse at Kurukshetra. And there, at that time, it says that Krishna and Balaram embraced their foster parents and bowed down to them. But their throats were so choked up with love for Nanda and Yasoda that they could hardly say anything. How interesting that Balaram kept Rukmi from being killed by Krishna, and later on he's the one who kills Rukmi. Right, so at the marriage of Rukmini's grandson to Rukmi's grandson, Rukmi cheats at chess And although a voice from the sky says, Balaram is one, Balaram, he didn't accept it, and Balaram finally kills him. Balaram helps Krishna in many battles. This is one fighting against Banasura and his army. And then basically Balaram gives up warfare, and he goes to the sages at Naimisharanya. But there, when Romaharshan Sutta doesn't show any respect, although Balaram had given up killing at this point, he kills Romaharshan Sutta with kushagrass, at which point the sages say, you have to purify yourself by killing Balvala and then going on pilgrimage. So this demon Balvala, who is polluting the sacrifice, throwing all these abominable things there, Balaram calls for his club and his plow and pulls him down and kills him. And then Balaram completely retires from warfare. He goes to holy places like Prayag. He goes to meet Padasaram. He goes to meet Skanda, Kartikeya. He goes to many mountains, distributes many cows and charities. He sees Agastya Muni in meditation who benedicts him. He sees Durga Devi when he goes to the shore of the southern ocean. And he goes to Falguna Tirtha, where he gives away many more cows. Finally, he comes back to Prabhasa. There he hears that there's this great war and that the burden of the earth has been reduced, but that Bhima and Duryodhana are fighting. So he goes there, at which time the Pandavas and Krishna are just silent. They think, what is Balaram doing here? And Balaram says, look, Bhima, you're stronger. Duryodhana, you're more skilled. Stop fighting. But they're so absorbed in their enmity, they cannot take his advice. So he leaves and goes to Dwarka, where he's greeted by Ugrasena and family. And then he goes with his wife back to Naimisharanya, where he shows all the sages how he has expanded all of the universe, and all the universe is within him. He and his wife then take the Avavrita bath and look like the moon surrounded by an effulgence. At the end of the Lord's manifested pastimes, Balaram sits by the ocean, and a great snake, Anantasesha, comes from his mouth, and they disappear into the ocean. Thank you very, very much. Lord Balaram ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Asa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Pasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu